In 1906, the Apache chief Geronimo, heard of him? Thought so, wrote a memoir. And in it, he not only told the biographical details of his life, but he also told stories that he had learned when he was young, such as how the world began. You see, in the beginning, the world was ruled by the animals, not the people, and they fought just like the people over boundaries and territories or slights until all of the birds got together and decided they wanted peace. And so they went against the rest of the animals. They won. And they elected the eagle as their great chief. Because, of course, eagles tend to be wise and just and all those kind of good things you want in a chief. And all was good. Except there were some animals that still believed that they were higher than the laws the eagle made. One of those animals was Dragon. He thought with his 4 coats of scale and horn that he didn't really have to say yes or no to anybody, much less please or thank you. So he basically did whatever he wanted. And then the first woman began to have her children. And one of the things Dragon thought was so much fun was stealing each babe and eating it. Every child she had, she lost. Until one day she decided that was it. She would not lose any more to him. And so she found a deep cave, and she went inside, and she dug a pit. Not really a deep pit, just enough to make a cool bed in the dirt. And outside, she lined a circle with stones, making a fire pit. When it was time for her to give birth, she went back to the cave, and she put the baby in the dirt of the cave. And then she went outside and she built a great fire in front of the door so that no one could tell where the cave began or where the mountain ended. Every few hours she would go back to her child and feed him and play with him and give him attention. But then she would hide him again with the fire. This is how the boy grew. And this is almost how Dragon found them. Dragon saw the fires and he saw the woman going back and forth, and so finally he swooped down and he found her outside of the cave, holding a bundle just baby-shaped. He grabbed it out of her hand and raising it up to his mouth as she began to scream, "No, my child, not my child." And he swallowed it whole. Little did he know that it was just a bundle of rocks swaddled up like a baby. And that's how she kept her baby safe. The dragon didn't ever catch on, even after his bit of indigestion. So the child grew in his cave, and his mother taught him as much as she possibly could, and he wanted to know more. Because you can guess, he saw the shadows on the walls. He could see there was a world bigger than him, and he wanted to experience it for himself. She tried to teach him her own fears, of the dragons and the snakes and the bears, of the rain that froze and the sun that burned. But he wouldn't listen. He wanted to know it for himself. And so finally, when he came of age, they came to a compromise, and she brought him out into the world, and she introduced him to his uncle, who agreed to teach him everything he knew about hunting, tracking, herbs, all the things a brave warrior needed to know. And they started their lessons on the spot. He taught the boy how to make his own bow and arrows. And then they began to track a buck deer into the forest, step by step, the uncle giving lessons all the way about the plants they would see and the animals and everything, every single detail. He tried to pour it into the boy's brain. And when they did finally find the buck, he taught the boy how to shoot. It took 3 arrows, but the boy finally did kill the deer. Then he said thank you for its life. And the uncle taught him how to use every single part of the animal, because that was the only respectful way to say goodbye to this life they had taken. And as they were dressing the deer, the uncle went through all of the rituals that needed to happen. They took the deer meat. Finally, they put it on a stick and they put it over a fire. And they waited for their supper to cook. The boy knew his mom was going to be so proud of him when she saw him next. But you see, the smell of the cooking deer got someone's attention. And that was Dragon. He swooped down, grabbed the deer off the fire, laid it on a bush, ran over, and looked the boy in the face, sniffing him. Oh, you're the boy who lived. You're the boy who escaped. Oh, I'm glad I let you grow up. You're not going to be as tender, but there's so much more of you to chew on. The boy walked over to the bush, took the deer meat, and put it back on the fire. You're not going to eat me, and you're not going to eat my deer either. Oh, really? The dragon took the deer meat back, put it back on the bush, and they went back and forth like this, about 4 times, stealing from one another, back and forth, until the boy stamped his foot and said, "That's it! I challenge you. You win the game? Like you will. Well, you can choose your prize. But if I win the game, you aren't going to be here any longer, and you're not going to bother anybody forever." The dragon just smiled with his big teeth. Well, my prize is this. When I win, I'm going to eat you, your uncle, and your mother, and this lovely deer meat. So the challenge was taken. And the boy explained the rules of the game. They would each get to shoot 4 arrows at one another from 100 paces away. The dragon could take the first turn. And so the boy walked 100 paces along, and the dragon got out his quiver and bow. His bow was the size of 3 stories, a long shaft of a pine tree, and each arrow were saplings dug straight out of the ground and sharpened to a point. He laid each one on the ground, 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one for his bow, which he notched and brought back. The arrow flew straight at the boy. If even one of these arrows hit the boy at all, at that speed, it would kill him. But the arrow flew at the boy, and the boy jumped up just in time, landed on top of an beautiful rainbow. And the arrow landed on the ground, split into 1,000 pieces. The boy jumped back down again. Well, dragon, you're just going to have to be better than that. And so the dragon grabbed another arrow, brought it back, let it fly. Just in time, the boy jumped up and landed on top of a rainbow. Again, it shattered into 1,000 pieces. The boy landed back down on the ground. Do it again. And again and again, the arrows splintered all over the ground, the boy jumping down and taunting. And now it was his turn. He took his brand new homemade bow and arrows, and he pulled back, let one fly. The dragon thought he was safe until that arrow hit him, and it shattered that first coat of scale and horn, and it fell down around his feet. He was so bewildered he didn't even move. And then the second arrow came, and it too shattered that scale and horn, falling at his feet. He was so irritated. He began to ball up his fists, but before he could do anything, the third arrow came and it hit him again. And again, the third coat of scale and horn fell away, and he was so angry he roared at the sky. But before he could do anything, the fourth arrow came at him. It pierced the coat of scale and horn, which fell away, and again it pierced through that and into his heart, which shattered into 1,000 pieces. The dragon's body fell over on its side, and I tell you, it is still there today, because that is what makes up the Rocky Mountains. The boy took his deer meat and cooked it perfectly. And the Great Spirit came to him that night as he dreamed, "O son," and gifted the boy the title of chief of all the people. He taught him exactly which herbs were for the medicines, and he taught him how to hunt and how to fight, all of the things that his uncle and his mother couldn't. And Chief Eagle came and called him chief as well, the chief among the chiefs, and taught him how to wear the feathers with justice and wisdom and power. That boy's name was Apache, and he became the father of nations of people. Because you see, the Apache people are not just one tribe, they are a family of Native Americans. They include the Navajo and the Chiricahua and the Mescaria and the Chicarilla and the Lipan and the Western and Plains Apache. He was the chief of an entire world. And the reason he became so was because he was a boy who was brave enough to leave his cave and face the dragon.